When the truth becomes more dangerous than the lie, you learn to breathe quietly between heartbeats, to smile while drowning, to carry secrets that could destroy kingdoms. That's how Lorelei learned to survive. Each morning, she pressed her palm against her still flat stomach and whispered apologies to the life growing within. Apologies for the father who didn't know, for the world that would condemn them both, for the loveless marriage she was about to enter, to save them all. The irony wasn't lost on her that she, deemed worthless for her mixed blood, carried the most valuable secret in the realm. The summons came at dawn, delivered by wolves whose eyes gleamed with barely concealed disgust. Lorelei stood in the great hall of the Silvermore Pack, her mother's fingers digging crescents into her arm. Around them, pack members pretended not to stare while drinking in every detail of her humiliation. The half-blood daughter, product of a shameful liaison between the former beta and a human healer, had been called before the council. The Northern Alliance demands strengthening, Elder Thorn announced, his scarred face revealing nothing. Alpha King Ravens requires a bride from our territory. Lorelei's stomach churned, though whether from morning sickness or dread, she couldn't tell. 3 moons had passed since the festival, since that night she'd tried desperately to forget. The night, everything changed. My daughter Celestine would be honored. Luna Maribeth stepped forward, pushing her golden-haired daughter into view. Celestine stood tall, every inch the pure-blooded wolf princess the Alpha King deserved. Elder Thorn's laugh was without humor. The Alpha King was specific in his requirements, his pale eyes fixed on Lorelei. He demands the half-blood. The hall erupted. Voices rose in outrage, in disbelief. Why would the most powerful alpha in the territories want their shame? Lorelei pressed a protective hand to her stomach, hidden beneath loose robes she'd taken to wearing. That's impossible, her mother stammered. Lorelei is nobody. She's not even a proper wolf. Her blood is tainted, she can barely shift, she is what he demands. Elder Thorn's voice cut through the protests. Unless the Silvermore Pack wishes to face the northern armies alone when the border wars begin. The threat hung heavy. Everyone knew what happened to packs that defied Alpha King Ravens. The Eastwatch Pack had refused his terms once. Their territory was now a memorial ground, their names forbidden to speak. But she's already ruined, someone whispered, loud enough for all to hear. Everyone knows what happened at the Moon Festival. She reeks of... Enough. Lorelei stepped forward, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I'll go. Her mother's grip loosened in shock. Lorelei, you don't understand what you're agreeing to. The Alpha King, they say he's cursed. That his wolf is more demon than beast. His previous brides. All died mysteriously, Lorelei finished. I know the stories, Mother. What she didn't say was that death might be merciful compared to what awaited her if anyone discovered her secret. 3 months pregnant with a stranger's child, about to marry the most dangerous alpha alive. The bitter laugh almost escaped her throat. Smart girl. Elder Thorn nodded approvingly. You leave tonight. The king's escort awaits. As Lorelei turned to leave, Celestine grabbed her wrist, leaning close enough that only she could hear. I know what you're hiding, she hissed. That night at the festival, I saw you leave the sacred grove. I can smell it on you even through the herbs you've been taking. Lorelei's blood turned to ice. Don't worry, Celestine's smile was sharp as winter moonlight. Your secret will die with you in the northern castle. They say his bedroom is a graveyard. The journey north took 3 days. 3 days of hiding her morning sickness, of pretending the jerking of the carriage didn't make her want to retch, of the king's soldiers watching her with expressions she couldn't read. On the 3rd night, as they made camp at the border of the Northern Territory, the guard captain approached her tent. Captain Aldrich was a grizzled wolf with knowing eyes that seemed to see too much. The Alpha King wants you to know, he said quietly, that your chambers have been prepared with every comfort. He's particularly instructed that you have access to the castle's healers immediately upon arrival. Lyrelai's hand instinctively moved to her stomach before she caught herself. That's considerate. The captain studied her for a long moment. The Alpha King is many things, my lady. But he's rarely without purpose. He paused at her tent entrance. A word of advice? Whatever you think you know about Raven's Blackwood, whatever stories you've heard, forget them. The truth is far stranger. As his footsteps faded, Lyrelai lay back on her bedroll, staring at the tent ceiling. Tomorrow, she would meet the monster she was forced to marry. Tomorrow, she would enter a castle from which no bride had ever returned alive. But tonight, she whispered to the tiny life within her, "Whatever happens, little one, I'll keep you safe. Even if it costs me everything." She didn't know that miles away, in a tower that touched the stars, Alpha King Raven stood at his window, a secret smile playing at his lips as he held a small vial, a preserved scent from a certain moon festival, one that carried the essence of healing herbs and desperate love. Soon, he murmured to the darkness, very soon. The northern castle rose from the mountainside like it had been carved from the bones of ancient gods. Black stone walls reflected no light, and towers twisted skyward in defiance of nature's laws. Lyrelai's wolf, weak as it was, cowered at the sight. They entered through gates that groaned like dying things, into a courtyard where no flowers grew. Servants lined the entrance, their heads bowed so low Lyrelai couldn't see their faces. The silence was oppressive, broken only by her own thundering heartbeat. Lady Lyrelai, a woman materialized from the shadows, tall, skeletal thin, with silver hair pulled so tight it stretched her features. "I am Madame Corvina, keeper of the king's house. You will follow me. No welcome, no ceremony, just cold efficiency." They walked through corridors that seemed to shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. Portraits lined the walls. Previous political hostages, Lyrelai realized with a chill. Each beautiful, each young, each with eyes that seemed to follow her passage with warning. "Your chambers," Madame Corvina announced, opening massive oak doors. Lyrelai stepped inside and gasped. The room was warm. Soft golden sunlight streamed through windows she hadn't seen from outside. A fire crackled in an ornate hearth. The bed was piled high with furs and silks, and on every surface, flowers. Fresh wildflowers that shouldn't exist in this frozen territory. "This must be a mistake," Lyrelai whispered. "The Alpha King makes no mistakes." Madame Corvina's expression flickered with something. Surprise? He designed this room himself. Every detail to his specification. On the bedside table sat a tray of delicate foods, ginger tea, dry crackers, mint leaves, everything her mother had given her for morning sickness. Lyrelai's hand trembled as she reached for the tea. "You're to rest today," Madame Corvina continued. "Tomorrow you'll be prepared for the binding ceremony. The king will see you at moonrise tonight for the formal introduction." After the woman left, Lyrelai explored her prison. Beyond the bedroom was a study filled with books, medical texts she noticed with shock. Herbalism, midwifery. A drawer contained supplies she recognized from her mother's healing work. Why would the Alpha King provide these? A hidden door led to a private garden, enclosed by high walls but open to the sky. Medicinal plants grew in neat rows, plants that could hide certain conditions. Plants that could strengthen a developing child. Impossible, she breathed. He couldn't know. But the evidence was overwhelming. Every detail of these chambers seemed designed for a pregnant woman's comfort. A woman trained in healing. A woman exactly like her. A knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. A young servant entered, barely more than a child, with dinner. As she set down the tray, Lyrelai noticed her hands shaking. "What's your name?" Lyrelai asked gently. the girl started. We're not supposed to… I mean, it's Mira, my lady. Mira, can you tell me about the king? The truth, not the stories. Mira bit her lip, glancing at the door. He's different than expected. Terrifying, yes. But after Lady Cassandra's death 2 years ago, he changed. Stopped taking political brides until… She cut herself off, eyes widening. Until what? Until 3 months ago. After the Harvest Treaty gathering, he suddenly announced he would marry again. But this time, he had specific requirements. The bride had to be… Mira's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Had to be carrying the future of 2 bloodlines. Lyrelai's cup shattered on the floor. I've said too much, Mira gasped, fleeing the room. Alone, Lyrelai sank onto the bed, mind racing. The Harvest Treaty gathering. That was just another name for the Moon Festival. The Alpha King had been there? She would have noticed someone of his power unless he had been concealing himself. Unless he had been the stranger in the sacred grove, the one whose face she never saw, whose scent had been masked by magic, who had whispered her name like a prayer as they… No, she said aloud. It's coincidence. It has to be. But her wolf, weak as it was, stirred with recognition at the thought. The same feeling she'd had that night, of power beyond measure, of destiny clicking into place. Moonrise came too soon. Madame Corvina returned with a gown of midnight blue that cleverly concealed her slight bump with its empire waist. Remember, the older woman said as they walked toward the throne room, the Alpha King sees everything. Deception is pointless. If you value your life, offer him truth. The doors opened and Lyrelai stepped into destiny. The throne room was vast, lit by thousands of candles that cast dancing shadows. At its heart, on a throne of twisted iron and bone, sat Alpha King Raven's Blackwood. He was not what she expected. Where she had imagined a monster, she found devastating beauty. Dark hair fell past his shoulders, framing a face that belonged in ancient prophecies. His eyes, goddess help her, were the exact shade of amber she remembered from that night. When he smiled, showing just a hint of fang, her knees nearly buckled. "Hello again, little healer," he said, his voice the dark velvet she heard in her dreams. "Did you really think I wouldn't recognize the mother of my heir?" The world tilted. Lyrelai grabbed the nearest pillar to keep from falling, her breath coming in sharp gasps that echoed through the throne room. "You're mistaken," she managed, though her voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. "We've never met." Ravens rose from his throne with predatory grace, each step deliberate as he descended. The candlelight threw his shadow in monstrous proportions against the walls, wings and claws that didn't match his human form. "Haven't we?" He circled her slowly, not touching but close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. 3 months ago, the sacred grove, the moon was blood red, and you were crying by the altar stone. Lyrelai's heart stopped. No one knew she'd been crying that night. No one except… "You wore a white ceremonial dress that turned translucent in the moonlight," he continued, his voice dropping lower. "You'd been rejected. Publicly. Your supposed mate chose your half-sister instead, announced it before the entire pack during this sacred bonding hour." Tears burned her eyes at the memory. Garrett, her childhood love, standing before everyone with Celestine's hand in his, declaring her his true mate while Lyrelai stood there in the bonding dress she'd sewn herself. "You ran to the grove to hide your shame." Raven stopped directly in front of her, and found a wounded wolf collapsed by the sacred pool. The memory crashed over her. The massive black wolf, larger than any she'd ever seen, blood matting its fur from terrible gashes. Her healer's instincts had overridden her broken heart. She'd spent hours tending to it, using her mother's teachings, speaking to it softly to keep it calm. "You saved my life that night," Raven said quietly. Rogues had ambushed me at the border. Silver-tipped claws. I should have died. Would have, if not for a half-blood healer who didn't run when she should have. But the wolf. Lyralay's voice trembled. When sunrise came, the wolf was gone. There was just a man. And we. She couldn't finish. Heat flooding her cheeks. You thought I was another refugee from the festival's cruelties. Ravens's smile was rueful. Half delirious from healing, I let you believe it. You were so gentle, so kind. You told me about your pain, your dreams, how you felt trapped between two worlds. And when you kissed me. Stop. Lyrelai pressed her hands to her burning face. That was a mistake. I was emotional, rejected. I'd had ceremonial wine. You were perfect, he interrupted fiercely. For the first time in centuries, someone saw past the monster to find the man. You didn't know who I was, what I was, and you chose me anyway. And then you left, Lyra accused, anger finally breaking through her shock. I woke alone. No explanation. Nothing but... She stopped abruptly. Nothing but what? His eyes sharpened. She turned away. She couldn't tell him about the note she'd found, the one that simply said, "When the time is right, I will find you. Protect our future." She'd thought it was cryptic nonsense from a one-night mistake, until she'd discovered she was pregnant 2 weeks later. Why? She asked instead. Why the elaborate deception? Why demand me as bride instead of just claiming what's yours? Ravens laughed, but it was bitter. Claim the half-blood healer carrying my heir? My enemies would have killed you before the words left my mouth. The Northern Alliance barely tolerates me as it is. They fear my power but need my armies. A proper political marriage, however, forcing your pack to give you up. That provides protection even my enemies must respect. So I'm what? A broodmare with diplomatic immunity? His eyes flashed dangerously. You're the woman who held my wolf form while it bled out and sang healing songs from the old tongue. You're the healer who kissed my scars and called them beautiful. You're the only person in 300 years who made me remember what it felt like to be human. 300 years? Lyra stepped back. That's impossible. You look barely 30. Another gift from my curse, he said darkly. Eternal youth to go with eternal solitude. Until you. A wave of dizziness struck her. Ravens moved instantly, catching her before she fell, one hand sliding protectively over her stomach. The gesture was so natural, so instinctive, that tears sprang to her eyes. You need to rest, he said softly. The journey was hard on you both. How long have you known? She whispered. My wolf could sense it the moment it happened, he admitted. Our kind's mate for life, Lyra. That night created bonds you can't imagine. I feel when you're distressed. I know when you're in pain. These past months, staying away while you suffered morning sickness alone, while you hid in fear. His jaw clenched. It nearly killed me. The other brides? She said suddenly. Your previous wives who died. Political hostages sent by rival packs, he corrected. Not wives. Never wives. They were spies or assassins who died attempting their missions. I never touched them. But rumors of their deaths served my purpose, kept the truly innocent away. Until now. Until now, he agreed, guiding her toward the door. Tomorrow, we'll have the binding ceremony. Tonight, you rest. And Lyrelai? He paused, his amber eyes burning into hers. No more hiding. Not from me. Never from me. As Madame Corvina led her back to her chambers, Lyralay's mind spun with revelations. But one thought rose above all others. The Alpha King hadn't forced her pack to give her up. He'd saved her from them. But from what she'd glimpsed in his eyes, something dark was coming. Something that made even the mighty Alpha King afraid. And their unborn child was at the center of it all. The binding ceremony was set for the blood moon, 3 nights hence. 3 nights for Lyra to reconcile the monster from stories with the man who'd gentle her hair back when morning sickness struck. Ravens hadn't lied about feeling her distress. The first morning, when she barely made it to the basin, he was there before her knees hit the floor, holding her steady, pressing a cool cloth scented with peppermint to her forehead. "You don't have to," she began. "I do," he said simply. "Every discomfort you feel echoes through our bond. Your pain is quite literally mine. It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like coming home." They fell into an unexpected rhythm. Mornings in the garden, where Ravens taught her about the rare medicinal plants he'd cultivated from across the territories. Afternoons in the library, where she discovered he'd collected every healing text known to wolfkind. Evenings by the fire, where they didn't speak of the future or the past, just existed in the quiet comfort of each other's presence. "Why healing?" she asked one evening, gesturing at the extensive medical collection. "Most alphas collect weapons or territories." Ravens was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "My mother was a healer," he finally said. "Before the curse, before everything. She believed power meant nothing without the wisdom to heal what was broken." His eyes found hers. "She would have loved you." The vulnerability in his voice made her chest ache. "Tell me about the curse," she said softly. "The real story." He turned to stare into the fire. "I was young, arrogant, convinced that strength was all that mattered. A witch named Seraphine came to our court seeking sanctuary. She was being hunted by the southern packs for practicing the old magic. I turned her away." He paused. "No, worse. I handed her over to her hunters in exchange for a treaty." Lyra stayed silent, sensing the weight of his confession. "She cursed me with her dying breath, or what I thought was her dying breath. You who worship only power shall have power beyond measure, but at a cost beyond bearing. Your wolf will grow stronger with each passing year, but so too will its hunger. And when it finally consumes you, you'll become the very monster you chose to be." "But you're not consumed," Lyra pointed out. "Not yet." His smile was grim. "But each year it gets harder to control. The wolf wants to hunt, to claim, to destroy. Only one thing has ever calmed it." He looked at her meaningfully. "That night in the grove. My wolf should have been feral from the silver wounds. Instead, at your touch, it settled completely. For the first time in centuries, I felt peace." He moved closer, not touching but near enough that she could feel his warmth. "And when we created life together, the curse cracked. Not broken, but weakened." "The child," Lyra breathed. "Our child is the key?" "A life born of genuine love between cursed and blessed," Ravens confirmed. "The witch never thought I capable of such a thing." "Neither did I." A knock interrupted them. Captain Aldrich entered, his face grave. "My king, we have a situation." Ravens was on his feet instantly. "Speak." "Envoys from the Silvermore Pack have arrived. They claim the binding is illegitimate. They're demanding the lady's return." Lyra's blood ran cold. "They can't." "The agreement." "They claim your damaged goods," Aldrich said apologetically. "That you came here already carrying another's child, making the marriage contract void." The temperature in the room plummeted. Shadows writhed around Ravens as his control slipped. "They dare." "It's Celestine," Lyra said with sudden certainty. She knew. She must have convinced them. "They're demanding proof of purity or your immediate return," Aldrich continued. "Elder Thorn himself leads the delegation. They're invoking ancient pack law." Raven's laugh was dark, dangerous. "They want proof? They'll have it." He turned to Lyra, his eyes blazing. "The binding ceremony moves to tonight." "Tonight? But Trust me. He cupped her face gently, at odds with the rage radiating from him. I will not let them take you. Either of you. Within the hour, the great hall was prepared. The Silvermore delegation stood on one side, sneering. Elder Thorne's scarred face showed smug satisfaction. Celestine stood beside him, dressed in wedding white, ready to take Lyralay's place. Alpha King Ravens, Elder Thorne began formally. We invoke the right of reclamation. This female is carrying a bastard. She cannot— You're correct, Ravens interrupted, causing gasps throughout the hall. She carries a child. Lyralay's heart sank. He was going to denounce her? My child, Ravens continued, his voice carrying absolute authority. Conceived 3 months ago under the blood moon, as is the right of any alpha claiming his true mate. Impossible, Celestine shrieked. She was with a stranger at the moon festival. You saw your alpha king claiming what was always his, Raven snarled. Or did you think I wouldn't attend my own territory's sacred gathering? The hall erupted in chaos. Ravens raised one hand, and silence fell like a blade. Any who question my heir's legitimacy questions me, he said softly, deadlier than any shout. Would anyone like to challenge? Elder Thorne paled. The timing, the ceremony, was always meant for tonight. Ravens pulled Lyralee to his side. The blood moon rises. My mate stands ready. My heir grows within her. The northern castle recognizes what the Silvermore pack was too blind to see. She was never yours to give. She was always mine. He turned to Lyralee then, and in his eyes she saw the truth. Every moment had led to this. Every pain, every rejection, every tear. All of it bringing her here, to him, to this moment when she would stop being everyone's disappointment and become what she was born to be. His queen, his salvation, his mate. Choose, he said softly for her ears alone. Not because they force you, not because you carry our child. Choose me because your heart knows what mine has known since that night. We are inevitable. The blood moon hung swollen above the castle as the binding ceremony began. Ancient words in the old tongue filled the air while Ravens and Lyralee stood within a circle of sacred flame, their hands clasped, blood mingling from matching cuts on their palms. But Lyralee barely heard the ceremonial words. Her attention was fixed on Ravens's face, on the way his amber eyes never left hers, on the tremor in his usually steady hands. He was afraid, she realized with shock. The mighty Alpha King was terrified. The final vow, the elderly priestess intoned, must be spoken true, or the binding will consume you both. Raven spoke first, his voice carrying through the hall. I vow to protect you above my crown, to choose you above my power, to love you beyond my curse's end. You are not my queen, because I am king. You are my salvation because I am lost without you. Tears streamed down Lyralee's face. She'd prepared formal words, practiced them, but what emerged was pure truth. I vow to see you when others see only the monster, to stand beside you when the world stands against us, to love both wolf and man, king and cursed. You are not my mate because fate demands it. You are my choice because my soul recognizes its home in you. The flames roared higher, turning from orange to silver to a blue so bright it hurt to look at. Power surged through their joined hands, and Lyralee gasped as she felt it, not just their bond solidifying, but something else. Something massive stirring within Ravens, testing its chains. His wolf was rising. Ravens, she whispered, alarmed by the way his eyes were shifting, amber bleeding to gold to something inhuman. The curse, he gritted out. It's fighting the binding. It doesn't want— He doubled over, a growl tearing from his throat that was purely animal. The Silvermore delegation backed away in terror. Several guards drew weapons, but Lyralee held on, even as Ravens's form began to shift, not the smooth transformation of a normal wolf, but something agonizing, bones breaking and reforming wrong. "Look at me," she commanded, using her grip on his hands to anchor him. "Ravens, look at me." His eyes found hers, and in them she saw the battle. Man versus monster, love versus curse, the wolf that wanted to protect her versus the demon that wanted to destroy everything. Without thinking, Lyrelai pressed his hand to her stomach where their child grew. "Feel," she whispered, "feel what we created. Feel what your love, not your power, brought into being." Ravens went absolutely still. The half-shifted features froze. Then, so slowly it was barely visible, the monstrous features receded. The wolf settled. The man emerged, gasping, tears on his face. "How?" he breathed. "Love, you fool!" Elder Thorn spat from across the room. The witch's curse was specific, consumed by power unless anchored by something stronger. The half-blood figured it out faster than you. But there was something calculating in the elder's scarred face that made Lyrelai's instincts scream danger. The ceremony concluded, the witnesses dispersed, but Ravens kept Lyrelai close. "Something's wrong," he murmured. Thorn gave up too easily. They retired to their chambers, now officially theirs, but neither could settle. Ravens paced like his caged wolf while Lyrelai tried to quiet her racing thoughts. "The way he looked at me," she said suddenly, like he knew something we didn't. A knock interrupted them. Mira entered, pale and trembling. "My lord, my lady, forgive me, but I had to warn you. I overheard the Silvermore delegation." "Speak," Ravens commanded. "They're not leaving. They're waiting for something." Elder Thorn kept saying midnight and the real curse. Ravens went very still. "Mira, think carefully. Did he say anything else?" Only that the witch who cursed you wasn't dead, that she's been waiting for this night." The blood drained from Ravens's face. "Seraphine," he whispered. "Goddess help us. Seraphine is alive." Before Lyrelai could ask more, the castle bells began to toll, not the hourly chime, but the invasion warning. Ravens was at the window in an instant. "We're surrounded," he said grimly. "Southern pack wolves, hundreds of them." "That's impossible," Captain Aldrich burst in. "The borders were secure." "Unless someone opened them from within?" Ravens's eyes blazed. "Thorn, this was always his plan. Use Lyrelai as bait to get inside, then—" A voice echoed through the castle, magnified by magic, female and achingly beautiful. "Ravens Blackwood, cursed of my making, I've come for what you stole. Surrender the child, and I might let your mate live." Lyrelai's hands flew to her stomach. "She wants our baby?" "The child of a cursed alpha and a blessed healer," Ravens said hoarsely. "Power beyond measure, in the wrong hands." He turned to Aldrich. "Evacuate the castle. Get everyone to the mountain passages." "I'm not leaving you," Lyrelai said fiercely. "You have to. For the baby." "No." She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "We're stronger together." The binding proved that. Whatever comes, we face it as one. Another voice joined the first. Elder Thorns. "You have 1 hour, Alpha King. Send out the half-blood, or we burn the castle with everyone inside." Ravens's control snapped. The transformation was instant this time, not the agonized shift from before, but smooth, lethal. Where a man had stood, now towered a wolf the size of a bear, midnight black with eyes like molten gold. But instead of charging off to fight, the wolf pressed against Lyrali, whimpering softly. She understood instantly. He was asking permission. The mighty Alpha King was letting her choose their course. She buried her fingers in his fur, feeling the power thrumming beneath. "We fight," she whispered. "But we fight smart. Seraphine wants our child? Then she doesn't know the most important thing." The wolf tilted his massive head. Lyrelai smiled, fierce and proud. She doesn't know that this child isn't just powerful because of its parentage. I felt it during the binding, Ravens. Our baby isn't just blessed or cursed. She placed both hands on her stomach, and for the first time, let her own power, the healing gift she'd hidden all her life, flow freely. Silver light emanated from her palms. Our child is the cure. To your curse, to the pack divisions, to everything. And if Seraphine wants a war over that? Lyrelai's dual-colored determination blazed. Then she just made the worst mistake of her immortal life. The wolf's answering howl shook the castle to its foundations, not a cry of challenge, but of triumph. The hour passed like heartbeats. Ravens had shifted back, and they stood in the war room with his most trusted, Captain Aldrich, Madame Corvina, who, Lyrelai discovered, was a former assassin, and 3 wolf commanders whose loyalty was absolute. Seraphine isn't just any witch, Ravens explained, his fingers tracing battle positions on the map. She's the last of the Voidwalkers, witches who can step between realms. I didn't just betray her to the southern packs. I betrayed her because I feared what she was. And now she's allied with Silvermoor? Aldrich asked. Thorn lost his mate to a curse years ago, Corvina said quietly. If Seraphine promised him vengeance or resurrection, he'd sell his soul, Ravens finished, and apparently, he's sold mine too. There's something else, Lyrelai said, studying the tactical positions. The timing isn't random. Tonight's blood moon, our binding, the baby. She's been orchestrating this. For what purpose? Aldrich asked. Before anyone could answer, the temperature plummeted. Frost spread across the windows. The candles flickered and died, plunging them into darkness lit only by moonlight. Because, a voice like winter wind filled the room, a child conceived in love by the cursed and blessed, bound under blood moon, born under eclipse. That child can reshape reality itself. Seraphine materialized from shadow, but she wasn't what Lyrelai expected. No crone or hag. She was devastatingly beautiful, with silver hair that moved like liquid mercury and eyes that held the depth of eternity. Ravens moved to attack, but found himself frozen. They all did. Except Lyrelai. Interesting. Seraphine circled her. The mother's protection already manifests. You can't be touched by magic while carrying the prophesied child. Prophesied child? Lyrelai kept her voice steady. Your child, dear one. The first in 1,000 years. Capable of rewriting the very laws that govern our world. Imagine, no more division between human and wolf. No more curses that can't be broken. Seraphine's eyes gleamed. In the right hands, paradise. In the wrong hands. Yours, you mean? Seraphine laughed, musical and terrible. Oh, sweet child. I don't want to use your baby, I want to kill it. The words hit like physical blows. Why? Because I've spent 300 years in agony thanks to your mate. Do you know what the Southern Packs did to me? I survived on hatred alone, planning my revenge. She turned to Ravens, frozen but aware. You took everything from me. Now I'll take everything from you. You're insane, Lyrelai breathed. I'm in pain, Seraphine snapped, her beautiful mask cracking. 300 years of pain, and the only thing that soothes it is knowing he'll suffer worse. She raised her hand, dark energy gathering. I'll make it quick. No! The word tore from Lyrelai's throat with such force that the frozen spell shattered. Ravens and the others gasped, suddenly free. But Seraphine's attack was already launched. Time slowed. Lyrelai saw the bolt of killing magic racing toward her, saw Ravens diving to intercept, and then she felt it. The tiny spark of life within her, suddenly blazing like a star. Her child's power erupted outward in pure, protective love. The killing curse hit the wave and simply ceased, erased, as if it had never existed. Seraphine staggered. Impossible. It's too young. You forgot something, Lyra Lee said, silver light pouring from her skin. This child was conceived in love, carried with joy. Love shapes reality. Ravens moved to her side, their combined power channeling through their unborn child, filling the room with brilliant white light. This is why you really want to kill it, Raven said quietly to Seraphine. Because it could heal you. And you're terrified of who you'd be without your pain. The child could take your centuries of agony away, Lyra Lee added softly. Stop! Seraphine raised both hands but froze mid-threat. Elder Thorn stood behind her, a silver blade protruding from her chest. My apologies, Lady Seraphine, he said coldly, but you've served your purpose. Seraphine fell, laughing. Fool, you're just another puppet. I poisoned the Silvermoor wolves months ago. When I die, they'll become devourers. Ravens grabbed Thorn by the throat. How do we stop it? You can't, Thorn choked. Lyra Lee knelt beside Seraphine, ignoring everyone's alarm. There's another way. She placed her glowing hands on Seraphine's wound. Everyone deserves redemption. Lyra Lee, no. Ravens tried to pull her away. The baby. Trust us. She reached for his hand, and their power combined again, but this time, the baby transformed it into pure healing light. Seraphine screamed, not in pain, but in release. 3 centuries of agony lifted. When the light faded, she lay breathing, whole, the weight of centuries gone from her eyes. You saved me, she whispered in wonder. The baby saved you, Lyra Lee corrected. Meanwhile, Celestine had been watching from the shadows, tears streaming down her face. The display of power, of mercy, had shattered something within her. I was wrong, she said, stepping forward. Jealousy made me monstrous. Let me help. Let me heal as penance. Thorn tried to run, but Aldrich stopped him. Going somewhere, traitor? You have bigger problems, Thorn snarled. Every power-hungry alpha will come for that child. Let them come, Raven said. Indeed, Seraphine said, struggling to sit. You have a Voidwalker's protection now. That child saved my soul. The aftermath was swift. Thorn was imprisoned. The poisoned wolves were healed by Seraphine's restored magic, and Celestine, humbled and genuine in her remorse, became an unexpected ally, using her pure blood status to convince other packs of the miracle she'd witnessed. But Lyra Lee couldn't focus on politics. The healing had cost her. She collapsed in their chambers, shaking with exhaustion. The baby, she gasped as ravens caught her. Seraphine appeared through shadows, examining her with diagnostic magic. The child is remarkable, stronger than before, but it's drawing heavily on your strength, preparing for rapid growth. How long? Ravens asked. At this rate? 2 months, maybe less. Over the following weeks, word spread throughout the territories. The prophesied child was coming. Some packs sent congratulations, others sent spies, though none passed Seraphine's wards. The strangest response came from the Celestial Pack, ancient wolves who lived above the cloud line. Their message: the stars have shifted. The child must be tested. We are coming. Tested? Lyra Lee asked. Ancient tradition, Ravens explained. They determine if a prophesied child brings salvation or destruction. And if they decide destruction? His silence was answer enough. That night, Lyra Lee couldn't sleep. She wandered to the garden, finding unexpected company, Celestine. I can feel it from here, Celestine said softly. The power. It makes my wolf cower. It's just a baby, Lyra Lee replied. No, it's hope incarnate. Celestine finally looked at her. I'm sorry. For everything. Jealousy poisoned me, but watching you save even Seraphine, I want to be better. A otherworldly howl pierced the night. The celestial pack had arrived. Through the gates came wolves made of starlight, led by a figure barely corporeal, the Star Speaker. "We have come to judge," they intoned. The Star Speaker placed a translucent hand on Lirale's stomach. Visions flooded everyone's minds, a child with eyes holding galaxies, wolves and humans as equals, curses breaking like dawn, but also the same child, older, power corrupting absolutely, reality bending to whims. The Star Speaker pulled back, looking uncertain for the first time in recorded history. The child is both. Its choice will depend entirely on how it's raised. "We'll love it," Lyra said simply. "That's all any parent can do." Then perhaps there is hope after all. The contractions started at dawn, arriving at barely 6 months of pregnancy. Lyra woke to pain that felt like reality reshaping itself. Windows cracked from escaping power. "It's time," she gasped. The castle erupted into controlled chaos, but as they prepared the birthing chamber, uninvited guests arrived. "Every alpha within 1,000 miles is converging," Aldrich reported. "They claim right of witness." "Let them come," Lyra panted between contractions. "Let them all witness that love created this power." The Great Hall was transformed. Alphas from every pack filed in, hungry for power. The Star Speaker took position as neutral observer. Even imprisoned Thorn was brought in chains. Tradition demanded all powers witness. But Lyrelai's world had narrowed to the crushing waves of pain and the feeling that reality itself was bending. "Something's different," Seraphine said to Ravens. "The birth is progressing, but the child's power is too vast." Indeed, the air shimmered. Ghostly figures appeared, spirits of the dead drawn by the child's arrival. Among them stood the previous political hostages who died in the castle. "We failed him in life," one spirit said. "We will not fail him in this." They formed a protective circle around Lyrelai. "Push," Seraphine commanded. Lyrelai pushed, and the world cracked. Every wolf partially shifted without meaning to. Humans saw through wolf eyes. The boundary between forms blurred. "The child is reshaping reality just by being born," the Star Speaker said in awe. Another push. Minor curses throughout the room began lifting. Ravens gasped as his own curse shuddered. "Not yet," Lyrelai gritted out. "Together." She reached for his hand, and their combined power flowed into their child. Everyone saw it, the threads of fate connecting every living thing to this moment. With a final cry that shook the mountain, their child entered the world. The silence was absolute. The baby didn't cry. Instead, it opened eyes. One silver like Lyrelai's healing light, one gold like Raven's wolf. It looked around with impossible awareness. "A daughter," Seraphine whispered, tears streaming. "A daughter of two worlds." Ravens took his daughter with shaking hands, and the moment he did, his curse transformed. The monstrous wolf became balanced. For the first time in 3 centuries, he felt peace. "What will you name her?" the Star Speaker asked. "Aurora," Lyrelai said softly. "For the dawn she brings." "Aurora Moonweaver Blackwood," Ravens added formally. Baby Aurora made a sound, almost like laughter. Power rippled out gently. Throughout the hall, transformations continued. Old wounds healed. Ancient feuds seemed foolish. "She's showing the world it was never as broken as we believed," Thorn said from his chains, wonder in his voice. Among the spirits, another figure appeared. Thorn's mate, reaching toward him with forgiveness. "The child must choose its path," the Star Speaker announced. "She's minutes old," Lyrelai protested. "Age matters not to such power." Aurora looked at the assembled crowd, then reached out with one tiny hand toward her parents, the other toward the crowd. Both. Choosing unity. A bridge of light connected everyone in the hall. For one moment they all felt what others felt, understanding flooding between enemies. The choice is made, the star speaker said, bowing. The child chooses not to rule, but to connect. The alphas began to kneel, one by one, not in submission, but in recognition. 5 years later, the garden rang with laughter as Aurora raced between flowering trees, her brother Davin toddling behind on 2-year-old legs. Their parents watched from beneath cherry blossoms, Lyralay's head on Ravens's shoulder. "Mama, look!" Aurora called, her mismatched eyes bright. "The flowers are singing." Indeed, as she passed, petals chimed with otherworldly music. Such things had become normal since her birth. The world was different, not changed by force, but by a child who saw no reason why wolves and humans shouldn't play together. "Careful with your brother," Lyralai called as Aurora lifted Davin with invisible threads of power. "I'm always careful," Aurora said solemnly. "Davin is precious." Davin had been a surprise. Healers said Lyralai would never conceive again after Aurora's powerful birth. Yet here he was, completely human and perfect. "Your Majesties," Seraphine appeared through shadows. "The Council awaits Aurora's weekly session." The Council, wolves, humans, witches, and spirits, helped guide Aurora's education, not to control, but to ensure she understood all perspectives. "Do I have to?" Aurora asked, already straightening her dress. "Knowledge is power, little weaver," Raven said, scooping her up. As they walked, they passed the Hall of Memory, once holding portraits of the dead, now displaying every family in the territory. Aurora had insisted, everyone should be remembered. The council meeting was typically unusual. Aurora's solutions were simple yet profound, to feuding packs. Share. Hunt different days. To fearful humans, have a festival. It's hard to fear someone you've danced with. To a struggling young wolf, you're not broken. Different isn't wrong. Each solution seemed childish, yet reality adjusted to make them possible. Cooperation doubled prey. Festivals led to marriages. The young wolf discovered unique abilities. That evening, tucking Aurora into bed, she asked, "Why do some people still fear me?" "Because power has been used to hurt for so long," Lyralay explained gently. "Show them through kindness, not force." Aurora nodded, then brightened. "The new baby talked to me today." "Davin is learning," Lyralay started. "No, Mama. The one in your tummy. She'll weave dreams instead of reality." Lyralay's hand flew to her stomach. She'd only suspected for a week. "How did you—" "We're going to be best friends," Aurora said happily. Later, as Aurora slept, her parents stood on the balcony overlooking their transformed kingdom. Mixed communities thrived where once there were strict divisions. "Did you ever imagine this?" Lyralay asked. "Never," Ravens admitted. "I thought my curse was my ending. It was actually my beginning." In her room, Aurora smiled in her sleep. Reality rippled gently around her dreams. Flowers bloomed out of season, stars rearranged themselves. Somewhere, lonely souls found mates. Celestine, now the castle's head healer after years of genuine service and redemption, had said it best. "She didn't come to rule or save us. She came to remind us we were never as broken as we believed." The prophecies had spoken of salvation or destruction. They'd been wrong about choosing. Aurora had done both. Destroyed the old world of division and saved them all by weaving something new. A world where a half-blood could become queen. Where a cursed king found redemption. Where love was the strongest magic. As the moon rose, 3 hearts beat as one. In her bed, Aurora whispered in her sleep, "Thank you for choosing love." Throughout the kingdom, in 1,000 different ways, love whispered back, "Thank you for showing us how." Sometimes the greatest strength isn't in forcing change, but in believing change is possible, and sometimes that's enough to reshape the world.